All of you have a general idea what the bill is, so I'm not going to waste your time on that. But there is one thing you need to know. There are two things that we could ask. One, simply for the right to know, and two, for a ban. The ban is no GMOs in our food. A ban is nowhere within our reach. And if we talk about that we want a ban, we're not going to get very far. Because we can't do it. We can't do it within Connecticut. And one of our problems is going to be the Connecticut farming community. If they think that we're looking for a ban, we're looking to regulate their activities, we're in big trouble. So if you're writing letters or you're talking to people, make sure that what you're saying is we are asking only for the right to know for labeling. That's really critical to our strategy as we go forward. It's the only thing we're going to be able to get this year. Agriculture, we love protecting farmland. It's a big priority for the whole environmental community. The farmers, on the other hand, are a big problem. They have very little environmental ethic. They're not our partners in this. So we need to do everything we can to keep the farmers sort of quiet. And the most effective way is to say, we're not trying to regulate how you run your farms. We're just simply asking for the right to know. And if something is labeled, the labeling is going to apply to all sources of food that we want the labeling for. So if it applies to food that you grow and that's prepared within the state, it's applied to food that's imported across the border. So we're not playing favorites here. We're doing nothing to keep the Connecticut agricultural community as a disadvantage. Knowing what you're asking for is a big part of getting the results you want. Okay, what are we going to be doing? We've been reaching out to the leaders of the legislature. In general, we're doing pretty well. First step is to get a bill run in committees. Usually in the past, we've always said, yeah, we'll just run it in environment. And the environment committee is our friends. We know them really well. They'll run anything we want to, not a problem. That's sort of been changing a little bit. They're not quite as sort of take it for granted as we used to. But last year, the Right to Know bill ran in environment, and there were some constitutional issues about labeling. Does the government have the right to say to the commercial folks, you have to label it just because we want you to? So this year we sort of changed our focus. We're going to run the bill not in the Environment Committee, but in the Public Health Committee, because the issue there is health. And the government, there's a real nexus between keeping people healthy and the role of the government. So that helps us avoid the constitutional problems. Now, this is probably more Tara's speech than is mine, but I want you to know what we're doing in the legislature and why we're doing it this way. So when we run the bill in the Public Health Committee, we're saying this is a health issue, and the government has an absolute right to get involved in issues of health. And if you have any doubt about it, go out and buy a pack of cigarettes. Okay? Case has already been made. So we're going to get a bill run in public health, or there's going to be a second bill, which is going to run in the Children's Committee, which I'm now going to refer to as the Kids Committee, because that's what we all do. They're going to run a bill for labeling. Their bill is going to be directed at baby foods. So the good news is we're going to have two bills. That always helps our cause, to have a bill running in more than one place. That sends a signal this is important. The bill that we really want to pass is a full bill that addresses labeling for everything, and that's the bill which is going to run in the Public Health Committee. So we're good with the committee leadership. We have some more work to do with legislative leadership. Brendan Sharkey is the new Speaker of the House. What we're hearing is he's not really sort of in favor of this. But that's because we haven't spoken to him yet. So one of our targets is going to be Speaker of the House, Brendan Sharkey. The second in command in the House of Representatives is the majority leader. The majority leader is the one who controls the flow of legislation. Majority leader this year is Joe Arasimowicz. And if you have trouble with Arasimowicz, life is real easy. Just call him A to Z. Everybody will know who you're talking about. We think he's going to be pretty good on GMO labeling. So we're going to meet with him, but we think he's going to be pretty good. The Senate, we have to talk to the Senate leadership. The head of the Senate is the President Pro Tem, who is Don Williams from Brooklyn, which is somewhere out there in the northeast Connecticut. Nobody really knows where it is. Problem is, there's agriculture out there. So we're going to have a concentrated look at Don Williams. The second in the Senate is Marty Looney. He's the majority leader from New Haven. We think he's going to be okay, but we haven't met with these folks yet. So that's something we have to do. So the reason I'm telling you all this is a chance for you to learn something about the legislature. And by the way, the first thing I should have done, and I apologize for this, how many of you think your state senator is Dick Blumenthal? Fabulous. I have never, ever asked that question to a crowd and not had half the crowd raise their hands. So we're already ahead of the game. I'm really happy about that. Okay. So we have legislative leadership. Then we have to reach out to all the rest of the legislators. There are 150 members of the House of Representatives and 36 senators. We're going to need to convince all of them. Then there's this one other guy we're going to have to sort of pay some attention to. And he is the governor. Last year, things didn't go so well with the governor. And I don't know if you want to speak to that later on. But he's going to have to be a big focus of what we do. We're going to have to convince him that the bill we're running last year is not the bill we ran last year. The constitutional problems from the bill last year have been addressed and they're not a problem any longer. But we have to convince him that his voters are really strong on this issue. When he ran for governor a couple of years ago, anybody remember how many votes he actually won by? 6,000. His margin was really narrow. We have to convince him that we have so many voters in the state of Connecticut who need GMO labeling that if he wants to get reelected, he's going to have to support us. So we're going to be contacting you folks and asking you to do a number of things. One of them is contacting all these folks that I've just mentioned, and there are numerous ways to do that. You can write a letter, you can send them an email, you can call their office, and I'm going to ask Kim in a minute to talk about which of these ways are really most effective. One thing you have to remember is you need to understand what the issue is all about, but it's not your burden to explain the intricacies of this stuff to the legislators. That's our burden. Really explaining what this is all about. I want you folks to understand it. But if you write a letter to your legislator and the letter is 3 pages long, full of lots of detail, that's great because that demonstrates that you really understand it. But the legislators are going to be looking for 2 things. 3 things. Number 1, what's the issue you're talking about? Number 2, what's the ask? What do you want them to do? And number 3 is the magic word, which is more important than any other word you're going to hear tonight. Okay? It's the word that changes the world. It is the word constituent. If you're communicating with a legislator and they know that you live in their district and you vote, that's more powerful than anything else. So anytime you communicate with a legislator, if it's your senator or representative, state senator, state representative, of course, you need to tell them, I'm a constituent and I vote. And this is what I need you to do. So I think any of those contact methods really work. If you want to contact the governor, you can write a letter. If you go on the state's website, ct.gov. There's a real handsome photograph of Malloy there. Click on that, you'll get to his homepage, and there you will find an online form to contact him.
But don't worry, we'll send all these details. You don't have to remember them now. We'll send it in an e-blast that spells all of that out.